Hello, and welcome back to Life Forces, the podcast with your host, Bianca Giulioni. I am here to support you on your journey of transformation, make it easier than you think it needs to be, make it fun, make it exciting, and to deepen your own understanding of yourself. Because when you have that, basically no one can fuck with you as long as you stand strong in it. This episode is a favorite of all of y'all's because I can see from, how many people are listening. This is my quarterly astrology forecast. So here we are, Q2 2024. I think this is the third time I'm doing this forecast for the podcast. And I like attempting to live my life somewhat seasonally, quarterly. I will say I don't think I was great at setting my intentions for this first quarter of the year. Maybe that's a lie. I don't know. I think it's been fine. But I think it's nice to break down the year into chunks, right? Anytime we break something down, we're like able to understand it better. So taking you through the next 3 months, I'm going to let you know astrologically what's going on, what are the main events, what to expect, what the general vibe is. And before I dive in, I wanted to remind you that my Step Into Your Power Masterclass Extravaganza is happening April 7th. So that's when we're going to have the live call. And this whole thing also includes learning about the North and South nodes, which are your points of destiny in this lifetime. So knowing that has really helped support me on my journey, because anytime I feel like I'm off track, if I tap into what my North Node energy is, which for me is Capricorn, I just feel like everything flows better, right? And this is a key thing that not everyone talks about in astrology. Obviously, a lot of people are, very well versed in their big three, like their sun, moon, and rising signs. But the North Node is really the key to so much. And I'm also going to be sharing in these teachings how the eclipses we're having this year in Aries and Libra are affecting us, how it's going to affect your chart, specifically what area of your life you're being asked to really step into a bold new version of you. And so, with this extravaganza, there's also meditations and other resources for you that you'll be able to revisit over and over again. I'm really big on creating things that last, that aren't just fleeting and for the moment. Of course, they're going to help you with the eclipses this year, but the information is also going to help you for many years ahead. So I'm really excited. So I hope to see some of you there in the live masterclass, and you can sign up via link in bio. All the info is there. So let us dive into this forecast. Let us do it. It takes me quite a chunk of time to prepare this. I mean, I'm happy to do it, but there's a lot of brain energy focus that goes into this. I do research. It's a lot. It's not just like looking at the dates and looking at, Mercury's moving into this. It's like there's a lot of depth and effort that goes into it. So I really appreciate any feedback you have. I really appreciate when you share the podcast with other people. It really helps support me and my business. I'm doing this all on my own as of now. So any sharing you can do is really beneficial. So let us get into April. Let me preface this by saying that the first few months of the year honestly weren't that crazy in the grand scheme of things. This is when the year starts to ramp up as of April, because January, February, March, we did not have any retrogrades, okay? Like Pluto moved back into Aquarius. That's a big deal, but we already had a preview of that in 2023. So it wasn't like this huge new energy. This quarter of the year, Q2, we are getting big new energy. We are getting breakthroughs. We are getting retrogrades. We're getting some funky stuff, some exciting things. So I'm excited to take you through all of that. All right. So in April, we got a retrograde on our hands. We have Mercury Retrograde starting on April 1st. And in addition to that, we have a very exciting once every 14 years astrological event, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. This time it's happening in the sign of Taurus. So we got that. That's a big deal. That's very rare. We've got Mars and Saturn doing its thing in a conjunction. Oh yeah, and we're at the tail end of eclipse season because we have the solar eclipse in Aries on the 8th. So this is an exciting month. These are an exciting few months up ahead. So all the more reason to be here and soaking everything up so you're prepared. I would say in general, this month, be open to adapting because things probably aren't going to go to plan. Reason number one is Mercury retrograde in Aries starting on April 1st. And I want to talk a little bit about the fact that for the most part this year, we have Mercury retrograde happening in fire signs, which is a very different energy from the earth sign Mercury retrogrades we've had in the past little while. So here, the vibe is to focus on our beliefs, our faith, our enthusiasm, activity, action in general, self-direction, independence, youthful energy, yang versus yin, so more forceful energy, transformation, alchemy, ambition, being dynamic, brave, a little impulsive, confident, passionate, going with our inspiration, and anything to do with the will. This is what's going to be reviewed, rethought, re-examined, recalled, reflected upon, generally speaking, during this during these Mercury retrogrades in the fire sign, and then particularly Mercury retrograde in Aries that we're speaking about now. So as a reminder, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and we're going to be in Aries season for the first and most of this Mercury retrograde in Aries. It's the fire starter, right? We're in the new astrological year, right? So there's this newness to it. There's this spark of consciousness. There's this will to be that Aries represents. And it's also really about the burgeoning flame of the individual. It's like the first step in individuality, right? Aries is ruled by Mars, planet of action, movement, drive, passion, will. And I love what astrologer Rick Levine has said about the motto of Aries, that it's ready, fire, aim. So it's more about the firing and then just going for it rather than like being super precise, right? The precision comes later. The precision maybe comes with like earth signs, but not with fire signs. There's this urgency and this impulsivity to Aries that could maybe wreak some havoc during this Mercury retrograde. So something to be mindful of. And things I encourage you to think about during this Mercury retrograde in Aries is, what is youth? Because Aries is quite a youthful sign. What does it mean to be an individual? How do we want to present ourselves to the world? What truly differentiates me from you, you from me? How can we do things differently than we've been doing them? And because in medical astrology, Aries rules the head, it also has a great deal to do with headaches, for one, can be, but also one's physical appearance generally and the ego. So I'm wondering if, during this few week period in April, if there might be a re-examining of the way that we approach maintaining, altering, whatever, how we physically present to the world and how our egos kind of project outward, like all the ways we can change our appearance physically. Is there going to be a re-examination of that? Yeah, I know that in some circles, cosmetic surgery is very normal and just kind of a given sometimes, but I wonder if maybe some people will be rethinking things like that. And then because Mercury has a little bit to do with technology as well, because it rules communication, maybe there's going to be a review of the way that we present ourselves on social media or otherwise, Is the profile page going to stay the same? Is it going to evolve? When we go on Instagram and look at people's profiles, is that going to be different? Is TikTok changing? I don't know. Let's see. And maybe also there could be more of a push to use digital avatars as a means of online self-expression. I personally do not like them. I don't think I will ever use a digital avatar. This also goes with my whole like anti-AI diatribe. But anyway, that's not for now. But maybe there's some kind of further push with digital avatars. Yeah. So that Mercury retrograde is going to last until April 25th. It always lasts a few weeks. Remember also 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, we have the shadow period. So things can also be a bit funky at that time too, just so you're aware. All right, so on April 3rd, we have Venus conjunct Neptune in Pisces. This is a time where we might feel more selfless in our relationship. We want to give back to others more. We might be a little delusional, delulu in our relationships and how we interact with others. And also boundaries might be dissolving in certain relationships, for better, for worse. On the 5th, Venus moves into Aries, totally switching things up, meaning we might be a little more selfish, to be honest, in our relationships. We might be thinking more about our own needs, and we might need more excitement. And we also might be more bold in how we are interacting with other people. So then April 8th, we have the solar eclipse in Aries, right? So a couple weeks before this, on March 25th, we had the lunar eclipse in Libra, opening the eclipse portal once again for the whole Aries Libra thing, the North and South node being in Aries and Libra, which has been the case since last July. So we've already been experiencing the shift, but we feel it more, obviously, when it's eclipse season. And in case you haven't heard, eclipses are basically new and full moons on steroids. So things happen a little differently during them. They're not like your typical new and full moon. Disclaimer, I don't recommend doing rituals on the new or full moons, like lots of astrologers would agree, because the energy is often just a little unstable. I like to suggest for people to just like sit back and see what comes to you rather than like involving your will so much, you know? So during this solar eclipse in Aries, happening at 19 degrees of Aries, Mercury is retrograde in Aries, fun. And Mercury and Mars are basically conjunct. So not a great vibe in terms of like potentially getting into arguments or having aggressive things happen, right? So something to be aware of. The moon is conjunct Mercury retrograde, so that's fun. There's a real like reflective energy to this solar eclipse. Mars is hanging out with Saturn. So when we have Mars conjunct Saturn, Mars is like the gas, Saturn's the brakes. So when we have that at the same time, it's like there might be restrictions or obstacles, like the way we're moving. We want to move forward a certain way, and then we get stopped by something randomly, right? So something to keep in mind, right? This goes with the theme of like not everything is going to go to plan this month, and it's great to be adaptable. But yeah, with Saturn being involved in this solar eclipse, I love Saturn. I will always apologize for Saturn. I think Saturn gets a really bad rap, but Saturn wants you to move through the feelings of restrictions. It doesn't want you to just like sit there and do nothing and cry about it and never move forward. And also, sometimes constraints can be a good thing, because when we have limited choices or when one way might not be working out, it forces us to look at other ways. Or like if we had 5 options and now we only have 2 options, great. It's like a 50-50 toss up as opposed to like being overwhelmed. Yeah. So on April 10th, the Mars Saturn conjunction in Pisces is exact. So those energies will be like even more amplified a couple days after this solar eclipse. And this is the first Mars Saturn conjunction in Pisces, it's ending the series of Mars Saturn conjunctions in Aquarius. So this is kind of like a new little mini era. Fun fact, the first Mars Saturn conjunction in Aquarius happened in April 2020. So we remember what happened then. And, you know, Aquarius is an air sign. We had an airborne virus, right? So that's making sense. So could be that there's something here to do with like, because Mars can be a very like violent energy, right? It's aggressive. It's like war, vibes can be, right? So it could be that there's some kind of like violence on the water between boats. Is there destructive waves, water, storms, floods, polluted water? Let's see. Yeah, so we're really entering this new Mars-Saturn cycle, which they last for 2 years. So let's see. So we've got the end of the Aquarius, the beginning of the Pisces vibes. What's interesting, and one of the kind of things we can think about with Mars-Saturn conjunction in Pisces, is the submarine implosion, the whole Ocean Gate thing of I think the submarine was called the Titan, right? That happened when Saturn stationed retrograde in Pisces. So it's stationed retrograde on the 17th and this happened the 18th. So it's like really like, aligned. Because when we have a retrograde, it's like an intensification of all those planetary energies. So obviously adding Mars in the mix to another planet is going to intensify things in a certain way. So that is an example of the type of thing that could happen with this Mars-Saturn conjunction. Let's see. Yeah, good times. So then on the 11th, we have the halfway point of Mercury retrograde in Aries, which is when the sun conjoins that Mercury retrograde. So anytime we have what this is called like a Cazimi, Mercury Cazimi, it's an amazing day to really like tune in to your thoughts, see what kind of messages you're getting. And because we're in Aries, just like really like what ideas, what thoughts, what is coming to you when it comes to who you are individually and what your next steps are, right? Aries is very action oriented, being ruled by Mars. So yeah, before, like in the middle part of April, it's like slightly more chill. But then we get to this big conjunction on the 20th, 21st, depending where you are. But before that, I must mention Taurus season begins on April 19th, which is helpful in terms of things feeling a little more grounded. Aries season, Aries energy can be quite quick, right? Whereas Taurus is not. Taurus is chill. Taurus is ruled by Venus, right? This is like, because we're in the middle of spring in the Northern Hemisphere, that means we've got a fixed sign going on. So it's more like self-aware, sturdy energy. Earth sign, things are blossoming. We're leaning into all things sensual, stable, grounded, earthy, this loyal energy, this unyielding, not giving up energy, this desirous energy, hardworking, trustworthy, reliable, solid vibes. We love it. It is a great time to lean into all things Venusian. So lean into more of like a receiving mode, spend a lot of time in nature, take a look at your finances, take a look at your values, things like that. Also on the 19th, we have Mercury linking up with Venus in Aries. So we are in Mercury retrograde. So always when we are in that period, to just, be a little more mindful of when we speak, especially like Aries can be super impulsive. So, I mean, this is not a bad day if you need to have conversations with people you're close to or anything relational to kind of discuss, but we are still Mercury retrograde. So just be mindful. Some people might be a little hot-headed. Maybe that's you. Who knows? So the next big thing, the biggest thing of the month and almost of the year, truly, is this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. So it's happening at 21 degrees of Taurus, okay? Good to know, because if you are a little more advanced, you can look at where 21 degrees Taurus is in your chart and see where major breakthroughs are incoming for you. So this happens every like 14, 15 years. The last time was in 2010. So a little while ago. I was still in university at that point. Good times. So this vibe, and I'm going to do a whole separate podcast episode on this, so not to worry if you feel like I'm not going deep enough. Don't worry, you're getting it in a separate episode. But the vibe here is optimism, breakthrough energy, stepping outside your norms, stepping outside your comfort zone, getting sudden opportunities coming to you, and just amazing innovations, especially in a certain area of your life, but also globally, we're going to see some exciting innovations because this conjunction in particular can be about like big breakthroughs in technology, for example. So I think we're going to see a lot of that because Uranus is involved and then Jupiter expands things. And it could be that all of a sudden there's like an explosion of certain technology and things advance at a more rapid pace. So maybe there's more adoption of things I don't like, to be honest. But anyway, gonna remove my personal opinion from this. And because Taurus is such a material world kind of sign, there might also be changes in money, in our financial systems, and when it comes to natural resources. And one thing that was shared on the Astrology Podcast's yearly forecast is that there's a big launch, spaceship launch, that got postponed and is now supposed to be launched like mid-April. So it'd be very interesting if this happened around the 20th, 21st, when we have this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And yeah, for those who want to know more details, it's the Boeing Starliner capsule that is meant to be launched to the International Space System. Yeah, you can just Google that if you find that interesting. So again, a whole separate podcast episode on that coming out, so you can dive into it. I think I also explain like where your breakthrough is happening based on your rising sign. Yes, that's pretty sweet. So on the same day, the 21st, we have big transformative energy in another area of the planets, which is that the sun in Taurus is forming a square to Pluto in Aquarius. So that just adds to this like transformative energy in the air. Then on April 23rd, 24th, depending where you are, we have the full moon in Scorpio happening at 4 degrees of Scorpio. This one is pretty intense because the moon is squaring Pluto. So there is this question of like, what changes need to occur? What transformations? They might be more deep than, I don't know, changing your hair or something, right? Scorpio is deep. It doesn't like the surface. Taurus is all about the surface and just feeling lovely in the present moment, which we all need. But Scorpio is like, no, we got to get to the core of what's going on here. So this might sound a little much, but what needs to die within you? That's the question on this full moon in Scorpio. So Mars in Pisces is forming a conjunction to Neptune in Pisces. It's going to ramp up at the end of the month. So there's this like fogginess when we have Mars and Pisces lining up with Neptune. Like we might feel a call to act on something, but we're not sure what to actually do. Actions we take or other people take might be a bit confusing. At the same time, we might feel very limitless because Neptune is the great dissolver. And, you know, maybe in a nice way, our actions will be guided and influenced by empathy, right? By this higher calling and sense of service. So we'll see about that. And then, I mean, yeah, Jupiter and Uranus are still pretty much conjunct. So there is that like breakthrough energy happening, and Mars is sextiling that whole situation. So there is this like push forward, even with a little bit of fogginess from Neptune. So the question here is, what do you need to let go of in order to break through and break free? And then also how Pluto and Neptune are configured. They're in a sextile. You might also be asking yourself deeper questions about spirituality and wanting to dive more into the unknown. And this can also be nice peacemaking energy as well, because Neptune can soften Pluto's like desire for deep power. So lots of things to think of on that full moon in Scorpio. So finally, on the 25th of April, we have Mercury direct in Aries. So that should clear things up again. It might take a couple weeks for things to fully clear up, but yeah, just take note of the insights that you've had throughout the month of April. Like, what have you been learning about yourself? What have you been learning about the actions you want to take and the passion and the drive within you, right? Then on the 29th, Venus moves into Taurus. So here, Venus is in rulership. So it's a lovely place for it to be. It's a great time to ground into your relationships with other people, to enjoy all the pleasures of life, to experience art and beauty, and just really lean into all that great stuff. Then the 29th, that Mars-Neptune conjunction is exact. And one way that this transit has been described is like, it's about like the fog of war. So I don't know where we're all going to be at with certain conflicts that shouldn't be happening. But again, that's another podcast episode. So if things are still going on, this energy does not bode well for things stopping, in my opinion. But let's see. I really hope that that's not the case, but let us see. Finally, on April 30th, Mars moves into Aries. So again, we have another planet in rulership. Mars loves being in Aries. It's strong here. And later in May, it's going to hit the North Node / eclipse point, which is going to bring interesting energy there. So we'll see about that. But it's a great time to just do it, go for what you want, be a little impulsive. And for me, it's a really nice boost to that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, because it's like, okay, we have this breakthrough, particularly in a certain area of life. And then Mars and Aries energy is amazing to like continue that momentum and actually like do the things and follow up with action. So that's all I've got for April. Alrighty, so now we are moving on to May. In May, one planet will be retrograde, and that is Pluto. We also have a big shift, which is that Jupiter is moving into Gemini. Other than that, there is big Taurus energy in the cosmos, except for Mars. And so this is a time where we're really grounding into the breakthrough that we experienced, the energy of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in April, and being open to transformation. This is the time for that. So on May 1st, we have Venus in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So again, this can be about maybe like power struggles in relationships needing to transform a little bit. Then on the 2nd, we have Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. And this is happening until October 12th. And I love to continue to demystify retrogrades and just remind you that it's normal for planets to be retrograde every so often. For the outer planets, such as Pluto, it happens every single year, and it's okay. It's just part of the flow of life in the cosmos. So Pluto retrograde is going to be happening in Aquarius, and it's also going to dip back in Capricorn, which is really interesting. And we're going to have this until October 12th, Pluto retrograde, by the way. And as a reminder, so Pluto came back into Aquarius in January, but it was in Aquarius in 2023 from March 23rd to June 11th. So already we had some collective transformation happening at that time, especially. So it's a time where we want to reflect on all of that. We want to see how technology has been changing. Humanity on the whole has been transforming the use of power, how certain social structures and humanity as we know it is kind of breaking down. Because Pluto can be about fear. There's fears around technology or non-human things that can cause harm. Fear of the future, all this like AI stuff. In my notes, I wrote AI - chat GPT, blah, blah, blah. And I was reminded as I was researching for this episode of a reel that I came across about this woman. Her first name is Vera. I don't remember her last name or her handle, unfortunately, but she was speaking about how she was unknowingly training an AI at her job, which then eventually replaced her. So that is something to keep in mind, my friends. Like, let's not, I'm sure, unfortunately, we're low-key already training certain AIs, but if it's in a situation where you can control it and not be a part of that, maybe don't be. I'm not saying this woman knew what was going to happen to her or anything, and I wouldn't like blame her, but unfortunately it's something we have to be mindful of. So stay awake to all that. And as I was saying when I was speaking about April's astrology, anytime we have a retrograde, it's intensifying all the themes of the planet and then the sign it's in. So we're going to have an intensification of all this stuff from May 2nd to October 12th. Pluto is going to dip back into Capricorn from September 2nd to November 19th. So something to think about. And at that time, I think we're going to also see more rumblings of change when it comes to societal structures and institutions, because that's what Capricorn can represent, and like certain things in that being exposed. So let's sit back and, I don't want to say enjoy, but sit back and see what happens. Then on May 8th, we have another regular, schmegular new moon. This is the new moon in Taurus. No more eclipses for now. So very interesting. The sun, moon, Uranus, Venus, and Jupiter are all like really smushed together, pretty close to each other in Taurus. So it's just like peak Taurian energy here. And for me, because new moons are about new beginnings, it's a great time to really get going on whatever new opportunity, breakthrough, whatever it was came to you on that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, April 21st. Like, I'm all about everything not having to happen all at once, because that is just not realistic, And sometimes we get like a big breakthrough, but life gets in the way and we don't act on it right away, or we don't shift things right away. So now's the time to get realigned with that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction energy and get going on things. And also, because we have so much Taurus energy here and it's a new moon in Taurus, to create a grounded step-by-step plan for whatever it is you're looking to create, whether or not it's related to that breakthrough that you probably had during the Jupiter-Uranus stuff. There's also a lot of powerful momentum here because we've got Mars and Aries sextiling Pluto, even though Pluto's retrograde. So that's a nice thing that can also kind of push you ahead on things. So then on the 13th, the sun links up with Uranus and Taurus. So for me, this is also highlighting and illuminating those sudden changes or breakthroughs that we had during the Jupiter-Uranus stuff. In general, it's a great day to do things that are outside of your normal routine, switch things up a little bit. Then on the 15th of May, we have Mercury in Taurus, which is bringing us more grounded communication, slower pace of thinking, and being more in the present moment with things. On the 17th, Pluto retrograde forms a square to that Mercury in Taurus. So when we have like Mercury Pluto stuff, it's a great time to get like deep into certain things. So if there's like certain subjects you want to research more, if there's something that you really need to dive into intellectually, it's a great time to do that. Then on the 18th, we have a beautiful Sun Jupiter conjunction, which brings luck, blessings, and expansion. Love that. Why not? And then we have the exact conjunction of Venus and Uranus on the 18th, which can result in sudden changes in relationships, maybe figuring certain things out, maybe realizing certain things all of a sudden. Sometimes it can be about this, like wanting to break free or rebelling. And this can also, of course, it's on the level of relationships, but it can also be about like aesthetics and art and beauty. So maybe like all of a sudden you want to like switch your look up or something. Could be a vibe that day. So then May 20th, we bust out of, don't know why I said it like that. We get out of Taurus season and we make our way into Gemini season. So again, Gemini is a mutable air sign and it's ruled by Mercury. So the vibe here is curiosity, being adaptive, communicative, creative, thinking about things in a multidimensional way, seeing different sides of something, bringing an intellectual angle to everything, being very quick-witted, being funny, being fun, you know? And it's a great time this month to take in information that's a little outside of your comfort zone, outside of your little bubble. We're all in our little digital bubbles for the most part. So like, read things from people that you don't like, you know, or people that you think you're going to disagree with, and see how that maybe opens your mind or helps you understand certain things more. And yeah, just like reconnect with people in your life, or make connections between different people that you think could like get along really well. And it's also a wonderful time to explore your immediate surroundings further. So whether that's your neighborhood, your community, or to like take a short distance trip somewhere. Then just a few days later, we have the full moon in Sagittarius. So it's a wonderful time to celebrate your spirit, your faith in yourself, your faith in the big picture. Really celebrate how far you've grown, what you've learned, especially from other cultures or other ways of being, because that's what Sagittarius can be about. Or also what you've learned from teachers, whether that's spiritual teachers or professors or whatever it is. Really celebrate all of that. And here we have the Sun, Venus, and Jupiter all linked up. And the Sun is in Gemini, obviously, but where Venus and Jupiter are, they're all pretty close together. Anyway, regardless, it's giving us very expansive vibes, and it's a great time to like dip into pleasure, all things pleasurable, to just like enjoy life. Like Sagittarius is very much about just like enjoying life, being carefree, not getting too lost in the sauce. Like Gemini can get lost in the sauce and like caught up in like all the different arguments and things and moving parts, but Sag is just like, cool, let's have fun. I don't really care. Yeah. And the moon is opposite Jupiter here. The moon in Sag is opposite Jupiter, still in Taurus, but moving into Gemini soon. So here there's this emotional release that can be very there, and also positivity, warm feelings. We might be more generous and giving to other people, which is lovely. And yeah, it's a time where we're maybe a little more self-indulgent than usual, not so disciplined. So like, just have a good time, treat yourself, vibe out. And we've also got Jupiter forming a sextile to Neptune. So it's a great time to really like fulfill your ideals, like live up to them, maybe help people that are a bit less fortunate than you. And it's a time where you feel like you really want to experience like higher aspects of existence, maybe religious things, spiritual things. So could be a cool time to like go to a yoga meditation class, mini retreat thing or something like that. Just like vibe out on the spiritual stuff, learn something new also. Not the best energy for like doing something a bit risky. Like, I don't know if there's any gamblers out there. I've never been much of one, but just like not the best time to do something risky. So just be mindful of that. Another cool energy we have here is that Jupiter is making a trine to Pluto. So we also have the opportunity to really make positive changes here in our lives. There might be opportunities coming through. You might want to change things, and you might want to regenerate things, like not just for you, but people around you. And it's also a time where we have the capacity to influence people a little bit more, and also fix situations that caused us a bit of trouble. Good to know. So then the same day, the 23rd, we have Venus conjunct Jupiter in Taurus right before it moves into Gemini, which, as I said, is kind of like coloring this full moon in Sag. So I think it's just a nice time to like hang out with people, to be honest. Like maybe go to a party or something like that. Throw a party. Do whatever your heart tells you. And then, so after the full moon, we have Venus moving into Gemini. So here, in terms of our relationships, we're craving a lot of communication. We're curious about things. We want to meet new people. We want to maybe put ourselves out there a little more. That's the energy. And then on the 25th of May, we have a decently big shift, which is that Jupiter is moving out of Taurus and moving into Gemini. And this is not Jupiter's favorite place to be. It's in what we call detriment. So interesting here. I'm going to do a separate episode about this Jupiter and Gemini situation. And I believe I already spoke about it in my like year ahead / Q1 2024 episode. But it's a time where things are definitely going to feel like they're speeding up. There's going to be a lot of information proliferating. For sure, we will feel like our minds are expanding. There's going to be a lot more curiosity, intellectual things. There's going to be a lot of inspiration too. The thing is here, there might be like too many ideas without a plan. So just be aware of that, because none of us are really able to do it all. Like you might not be able to do it all. You might not be able to execute every single idea you have in this Jupiter in Gemini time. And be mindful of overstimulation, too much information. Yeah. I think there's just going to be a lot of noise, a lot more noise than usual. So this is the best time. And I mean, if you can do this before Jupiter in Gemini happens, even better, to really cultivate good boundaries when it comes to taking in information, right? I know for me, I've shifted to listening to more music than podcasts, for example, because I'm like an audio person. I like to have things to listen to throughout my day. A lot of times I won't take my phone out for a walk just to like disconnect. And yeah, I'm trying to be more mindful of my like information consumption, whatever that is. So that can be like reading the news, watching things, listening to podcasts, like just leaving a little more space for your own thoughts and your own processes. And because of all this stuff happening with Jupiter and Gemini, it could be that like polarization between things gets worse. So something to watch out for. And yeah, I think it's very easy to get caught in the polarization trap on social media, because social media loves that shit and it like keeps people on it longer. So just be aware of it and really like check in with yourself. Does it feel good to low-key be manipulated into hating someone else just because they have a different opinion from you? Like I personally don't love that. So something to think about. Yeah, to just be really discerning when it comes to what is coming to you and what you decide to take in and integrate. Just an FYI, the last time Jupiter was in Gemini was June 11th, 2012 to June 25th, 2013. I know for me, that was a time where things really felt like they sped up for me. I was in my last year of university and yeah, things were a bit chaotic in my life at certain points. Mostly fun chaotic, sometimes not so fun chaotic. So if you feel like it, think back to that time in your life and see what was going on, because maybe some similar things will come up for you. Yeah. So then oh my gosh, last day of May, we made it to May, guys. We made it through May. On May 31st, Mercury forms a conjunction with Uranus and Taurus. So this is a great day for like inspiration, new ideas coming through, like mental breakthroughs, breaking out of certain ruts. So love that for us by the end of May. Okay, so we've made it to June, the last month of Q2 2024. Before I dive in, I want to remind you that I have a 2024 digital astrology calendar, which is so cool. I'm so happy that I made it this year. And essentially, it's a Google calendar that has all the important astrological dates of the year, and you have access to that, and it goes straight to your Google Calendar and then also to your iCal if you want, if you've got an iPhone or Mac or whatever. And you get all the important astrological dates straight to your phone, your computer, whatever, with a little description for each. It's a great way to keep track of everything. If you really enjoy these episodes and this kind of stuff, it's perfect for you, I would say. So yeah, let's get into June now. So in June, we've got Pluto, and then Saturn is going to be retrograde by the end of the month. And because we're in Pisces season, things are going to be forming a square to Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. And Neptune, of course, can make things a little fuzzy. And Saturn can really provide a bit of a reality check. So especially when it comes to like this Jupiter and Gemini, like new crazy ideas, like thoughts coming through, whatever, Saturn is going to ground that a little bit and be like, you sure about that? we'll see. So on June 2nd, we have Jupiter in Gemini forming a trine to Pluto in Aquarius. So the vibe here is very much empowering. Jupiter is empowering Pluto's transformation on the collective, and Pluto helps empower communication with Jupiter in Gemini. Yeah, hopefully we have like a nice symbiosis here and like nice empowering things happen rather than like, I don't know, for some reason I'm thinking propaganda dispersing, but maybe I'm just being dramatic. Let's see. That's June 2nd. And then on June 3rd, we have Mercury moving into Gemini. So we'll have some Gemini vibes, more Gemini vibes for Gemini season. So Mercury, when it's in Gemini, is in domicile, meaning it's happy place, you know? So here we have an active brain. We have lots of ideas, lots of communicating. And yeah, because also we've got Jupiter and Gemini in the mix, be mindful of getting lost in the sauce. Don't overdo it. Don't get information overload. Yeah. On June 4th, we have a pretty special thing, which is Venus Cazimi, which happens once a year, which is when the Sun and Venus link up. So they are linking up in the sign of Gemini. And when we have Venus Cazimi, it's a reset of the Venus cycle because Venus is entering the heart of the Sun and then leaving. So it's a day where love, connection, and beauty are amplified. It's a great day to meet people, to submerge yourself in art, to create something. So yeah, see how that lands for you. On the same day, we have Mercury conjunct Jupiter in Gemini, which could maybe lead to an information overload. Let's see. But it's a time where we're very confident in speaking. We might have a greater understanding of certain issues, an expanded view of things. We're more tolerant of different viewpoints. Our mental processes speed up. There's enthusiasm. There's an optimism there. So it's really like coloring not only the Venus Cazimi vibe. So I think June 4th is just going to be a really nice day to socialize and enjoy things, maybe create things as well. And it's also coloring the new moon 2 days later. So June 6th, we have the new moon in Gemini happening at 16 degrees Gemini. So the Sun, Moon, and Venus are all conjunct in Gemini. So all those energies are aligned. So like our essence, our emotions and inner world, and how we relate to one another, that's all happening in Gemini. But then we have Mars square Pluto, which could bring about power struggles. But at the same time, it's like a force that can really move us forward as we're maybe setting intentions for the next 6 months, as is always a good idea when we have a new moon. We saw that Mercury conjunct Jupiter. So like lots of communication and yapping vibes. And this new moon is also square Saturn, which is giving us that reality check that I spoke about. So it's also a good time on this new moon to really refine your new ideas and that inspiration that you've received since Jupiter's moved into Gemini, especially. Refine all of it and see what you actually want to move forward with. See what you actually want to focus on in the next 6 months. So then the reality check that we get on June 8th is in terms of our relationships, because we have Venus and Gemini forming a square to Saturn in Pisces. So relationship reality check, relating reality check. Do we need to set any boundaries? Are things going the way we want them to go? Let's see about that. On June 9th, Mars changes signs and moves into Taurus. So Mars is a lot less intense in Taurus. Some aspects of life might seem a little slower, but going back to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction again, this is going to help us take action in the area where we had that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And the momentum and the vibe of Mars in Taurus is a bit more like slow and steady wins the race. So be patient, right? Like cultivate patience when we have Mars in Taurus. So then we have another reality check on June 9th, which is the Sun squaring Saturn. It's more of like a general check-in, you know, how are things going? How are you doing? How are you shining your light out on others? Does something need to be adjusted there? Something to think about that day. So I spoke briefly about Mars square Pluto. That's going to be exact on the 11th. So we have Mars and Taurus squaring that Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So it's not all like scary. It's also a time where you can really creatively transform the world around you. You might be more high energy. But again, we could have some of those power struggles, and it's also a grappling with a negotiation between individual energies and the energies of the group. So that's where the clashes might happen. Like maybe your will isn't in alignment with the way the group, whatever they are, wants to do. So then on the 12th, we've got Mercury in Gemini squaring Saturn in Pisces. So again, we're reining things in a little bit. Like I wrote, we're reining in the multitudes, right? Mercury in Gemini. Mercury in Gemini is very like looking at all the different angles of what's happening. But with Saturn squaring it, it's like, okay, let's dial it down a little bit. You know, let's go into 5 dimensions and not 11 or something like that, right? Then on the 14th, we have a Mercury Cazimi. So we got Sun conjunct Mercury in Gemini. Again, great time to receive downloads, insights, new ideas. Saturn is still kind of there being like, are you sure about that? But see what you receive that day. See what comes to you. See what inspiration comes with you. See who you want to communicate with. On the 17th, both Venus and Mercury squared Neptune in Pisces. So not the best day for getting your point across or having a serious conversation with someone. Great day for creativity and getting lost in things a little bit. So let yourself do that on the 17th. At the same time, on the 17th, not at the exact same time, but the same day, Venus moves into Cancer. So the vibe of our relationships is more nurturing. They might have a deeper emotional dimension to them. We're more sensitive when it comes to other people. We're more intuitive. Get into the feelings. So I wouldn't say right when Venus moves into Cancer is the best day to communicate with the feelings, but just like feel into the vulnerability a little more. And maybe you need to like cry with someone, but not really say much, you know, like that's maybe the energy. But yeah, so after we have Mercury and Venus squaring Neptune and Pisces when they're still in Gemini, Venus moves into Cancer and then Mercury moves into Cancer. It's a few hours apart here. So then it's a great time to communicate through emotions or with more feelings. So later in the day on the 17th, 18th onward, great time to get super vulnerable with people and just go there. Prepping us for Cancer season, for the summer solstice, which is happening a few days after, getting into those watery vibes. Yep. So on the 20th, we have the Sun in Gemini squaring Neptune in Pisces right before the Sun moves into Cancer. So this is a time where you might want to be like a little delulu with things, like have fun with things, get creative, daydream, that kind of vibe. And then we have the summer solstice / Cancer season begins. So it's the beginning of summer in the Northern Hemisphere. Cancer is a cardinal water sign. And I think, I mean, I'm totally biased because I'm a Cancer myself, but we get the reputation of like being crybabies and like being too dramatic on an emotional level, blah, blah, blah. But we are low-key powerful because we're a cardinal sign at the end of the day. And we low-key initiate things with our emotions. You know, we can make things happen with the power of our emotions, in my humble opinion. So it's a time where we want to reconnect with our feelings, our sensitivities, that nurturing kind of energy. Cancer is very much like the mother archetype of the zodiac. So make sure you're mothering yourself. You're taking care of the people around you as well, right? Cancer is ruled by the moon, which is so much about our inner world and what makes us feel safe. So really like lean into that, like really lean into what makes you feel good and safe and nourished at the beginning of the summer. Cancer can also be a little like nostalgic and stuff like that. So yeah, great time to be a little brooding, you know, to really like lean into what happened 3 years ago or whatever it is. Yeah. Good time to just like tune more into the lunar cycle and see how that makes you feel as you align yourself with the different phases of it. And then also spend time near water, preferably inside the water, if that's your vibe. So getting to the end of June now, crazy. We have a full moon in Capricorn happening at 1 degree of Capricorn, because we're early in Cancer season here, having this full moon. It's pretty interesting because we have moon in Capricorn squaring Neptune. And so the vibe is pretty dreamy for a Capricorn full moon, because I mean, Capricorn itself is not a very dreamy sign. So that's pretty interesting. Jupiter trining Pluto here can have a lot to do with personal growth. So it's a great time to really think about how you've grown in the past 6 months, especially when it comes to your professional achievements, being out there in the world, taking responsibility for things. And Capricorn is great at being a bit detached from things. So get a more objective perspective about how far you've grown. Like look more at the facts instead of your feelings on this full moon in Capricorn. And you can go back very specifically to the new moon in Capricorn on January 11th. How have things changed for you since then? Professionally, in your career, how you're just like a person that's responsible in the world, right? And then we have the last major event of June, which is Saturn stationing retrograde in Pisces on June 29th. And so it stations at 19 degrees of Pisces. It's going to go back in Pisces a little bit, and it's going to be there retrograde until November 15th. And so here we had a Saturn retrograde in Pisces last year, which I'm going to talk about. But generally speaking, it's a time where we're navigating our emotional and spiritual boundaries, and we're going to see the intensification of themes that have emerged from Saturn so far in Pisces. Still a relatively new energy we're experiencing. There's also, because Saturn can have to do with fears, there's also this idea of boundaries, restrictions, fears, and limits when it comes to water. And one thing that happened right as I mentioned this earlier in the episode, there was the whole Ocean Gate thing, right? The submarine implosion that happened right as Saturn was stationing retrograde in Pisces last year. The other thing that was very interesting that happened in that Saturn retrograde in Pisces time last year was that the SAG-AFTRA strike of actors and other people in the film industry, that also aligned with that Saturn retrograde, which is so wild, right? And Pisces is also very much about creativity, right? So it's this like renegotiation of creative stuff and fears that come up, right? Especially with all the AI stuff that, you know, we can relate that to Pluto and Aquarius transformations on the level of the collective. But it was really interesting. Like it was when I think it was like July 14th, my birthday, to sometime in November, right? So it lined up very well with Saturn retrograde. Super, super interesting. Looking a little bit ahead to July, Neptune is going to station retrograde in July. And looking ahead to 2 years from now, there's going to be an exact Neptune-Saturn conjunction in 2026. And during this retrograde of both Saturn and then Neptune, the conjunction gets the closest that it's going to get before 2026. So we have these themes of like reality versus illusion that are really going to come up. Yeah, I would say we're going to probably see a little bit of it in June, at like very end of June, but for sure into July once Neptune also stations retrograde. So that is very interesting, isn't it? We will see how that all shakes out. Wow, we made it to the end. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this super informative. I feel like I know everything about these next few months. And yeah, if you want to work with me, the ways to play are you can join the Step Into Your Power Masterclass happening live on April 7th. But if you're listening to this after or whatever, you can still catch the replay and you'll get so much from it. As I said, it comes with a lot of amazing resources that are going to really help you harness that power. I'm going to be speaking about how I've harnessed my power and really stepped into it confidently and not in like a fake way. For realsies. And you can also get in touch about working one-on-one. Probably by the time this episode comes out, I will be relaunching coaching if not like 100%, then in like a beta way. And if it's beta, whatever, how you want to pronounce it, there will for sure be a little bit of a discount because I'm looking for a lot of feedback and testimonials. So that will be really exciting. I'm looking forward to that. The vibe is getting your energy aligned with your purpose, which has helped me so much. And over the past 4+ years, like having my business, but also learning things and experiencing things before, I have learned how to align my energy with my purpose, and I've taught other people how to do that. And so I've come up with a method that really makes it clear to you and where I will be accompanying you on the way, which I'm super duper excited about. So thanks again for being here with me. As always, rate and review the podcast, share it, spread the gospel of Life Forces Inc. And if you want to stay connected, you can do so on Instagram at Life Forces Inc., TikTok at Life Forces Inc., and subscribe to my newsletter because I always have things that I announce there that I don't say anywhere else, discounts, exclusive, etc. And it's the best way to stay connected without the drama of the algorithm, aside from this amazing podcast. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here with me. Have an amazing second quarter of Q2. Get ready for some breakthroughs, some changes. It's going to be amazing. And I'm right there with you.